Are you worried about the influence other people are having through their role modeling on your children? This is something that comes up so often when we're talking about how our kids are doing something because they've seen someone else do it. And we start to worry that if we don't get the other person to stop doing the thing, or perhaps even limit the time that our kids spend with that person, we end up like worrying, are they going to just be forever behaving poorly? And I find the role modeling conversation so fascinating because I really see it quite differently to most people. So the first thing I say about role modeling is that, like, yes, it's fantastic if we can surround our children with wonderful role models, like we would all do that to the best we can. But when we start to worry about how our children are picking up behaviors from other people, what we're starting to do is actually remove the power of our children choosing their own behaviors. So what we're starting to do is basically say, well, they can only do as well as the people around them are doing. And that's just never true. Like, yes, it's easier if everybody around them is behaving in a different way. But when we say things like, we need everybody around them to behave in a certain way in order for them to behave appropriately, we're kind of like letting them off the hook. Like, well, of course you would behave like that because you've been around people who behave like that all the time. When really our children, when they're so, so, so young, they have the ability to choose their own behavior. They really do have the ability to understand it. And yes, there's some strategies and techniques that we need to do to help them to understand their own behavior. But really, we want them to understand that they are not at the liberty of peer pressure, or, also even just recognizing that you don't have to behave in alignment with who's around you. You always have the option to behave in alignment with your own values. So when we think about what that means, is kind of like maybe stop nagging their other parent or the grandparents, or worrying about how much time they spend with a friend that's giving them these bad behaviors, but start to look at what do we need to do to address those underlying behaviors. So the first thing we want to do whenever we find our kids have picked up a bad habit from some role modeling that they've experienced, the first thing we want to do is not acknowledge anything to do with the role modeling. We just want to recognize what is it that they are trying to achieve with that behavior. So 9 times out of 10, that's a made-up statistic, as apparently most statistics are, but a vast majority of the time, if you're worried about role modeling for behaviors, then the behavior isn't working for your child. And I say that because if the child was getting what they needed out of this behavior, but it was negatively impacting on other people, your question would more likely be, how do I get my child to understand their impact on others, or have empathy, or to be considerate? Like, that would be the question. But when we're in this space of role modeling, it's normally they're doing something that is not good for people, and we can't understand why they would do it. So therefore, we're kind of going, well, they're getting it from Uncle Sam, and that's why we have this issue, is because that other person has modeled this behavior. So if we then look underneath to what is it that they're trying to do. So if, say, for example, it is using swear words, the question becomes, why do they think using swear words would be better than the other choices that they have? So are they trying to get attention? Are they trying to make something funny happen? Are they trying to shock people? Like, what is the reason underneath? And remember, whenever we're looking for the reason our children are behaving, we want to go deep enough that we get to a place where we can validate that reason. So if, for example, they were swearing when they know that you don't appreciate swearing, if you say things like, they're just trying to upset me, that's not deep enough, because just trying to upset you is just not something that we could say, well, that's a valid reason to behave in a certain way. So we want to go to a level deeper, is what would that be about? Maybe they want to let you know that you've spent too much time with their sister earlier today and they don't feel like they're important to you. Or is it that they're bored and they want some help? They'd like to play with you, but you've said no, so therefore they're being agitating just to get that attention. So we want to get in under what might be the reason that they're behaving that way. and bring it up. It's like, hey, sweetie, I've just noticed that you're swearing a lot recently. Do you think it's because you're upset that I'm spending so much time with your sister? So whatever it is, you're just going to bring that up. And even for small kids, obviously shorter sentences than I usually use. Everybody knows that my sentences are always unnecessarily long. But shorter sentences, simpler language. But even for tiny children, we're going to, if they're doing something that they've seen somebody else do and it's agitating for you, then you want to draw attention to what you think the reason is that they're doing that behavior. So then once we have identified, okay, this is the reason we think they're doing it, the next thing we're going to do is actually evaluate with them how well it's working. So you're really bored. And when you swear and you know that I don't like it, as soon as it's finished, you're still bored, right? You're just really bringing that awareness in. So if they are making a mess and you've asked them not to, they've seen the cousins do it, and you would like them to stop, it's like, so you were bored and now you've made a mess, but now that the mess is just there, you're still bored, right? Whatever it is we want to go into, is it working or is it not? Now, there'll be a very small amount of times that they actually are getting what they need out of it. And then we want to go into the process of looking at, okay, so how can we get it to work so that it works for both of us? But for most of the time, when we're worried about role modeling, them picking up behaviors from role modeling, most of the time what they're doing actually isn't working. So we evaluate it with them so that they recognize what is and isn't working. And then the third thing we want to do is really, once we've brainstormed the options that they have, is actually, if they don't immediately shift, they may or may not immediately shift into the new world, where it's like, okay, well, if I know that I'm bored, instead of making a big mess, what I'm going to do is blah. If they don't immediately shift into that, we need to, as soon as the behavior comes up, we're going to go, oh, so do you think it would be better if you just played Lego? Something from that list, right? It's like reminding them, you're doing this because you're bored. Do you think maybe it would work better if blah? Just getting them into that, I'm in the problem-solving mood, so that they're spending less time in the automatic space where they're just doing something they've seen someone else do, and more time into that problem-solving space. How do I actually get more of what I need? And if they're in those examples where they're actually getting what they need and it's impacting on other people, is how do I get more of what I need while everybody else around me gets what they need as well? So I hope this has been really helpful, and please do pop your comments, your questions in the comments below. This can be a little bit of a touchy subject because for a lot of parents, they can feel like the simplest solution is to stop these behaviors from being demonstrated around them. But most often, it's like a temporary solution. Most often, what we really need is for them to be able to solve that underlying problem. So I definitely would like to hear how this lands for you. Pop your comments, any questions in the comments below, and I'll also pop a link into the description of this video as to how to register for my mailing list, and you'll get each week a blog video like this one emailed to you, as well as any interesting information about offers I might have or hints and tips. Thanks so much for watching.